I love you! Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. What if the person you secretly loved suddenly loved you back so intensely that it became a living nightmare? That's basically the horrifying setup of Obsession, and wow, this movie goes from awkward romantic comedy vibes to absolute psychological terror faster than you can say, maybe don't make magical wishes. Because by the end of this film, we've got body horror, possession, emotional manipulation, murder, dead cats, exploding money, and one of the bleakest endings in recent horror memory. So let's break it all down. What actually happened in the ending, what the One Wish Willow really does, whether Nikki ever truly loved Bear, and why the final scene is way more tragic than it first appears.
Do you still think I'm pretty?
The bloody road to the finale. To really understand why the ending hits so hard, we have to look at how quickly things spiral out of control in the final act. For most of the runtime, Obsession plays like a deeply uncomfortable, slow-burn psychological thriller. There isn't really a body count. It's just freaky Nikki doing increasingly unhinged stuff like making Bear a sandwich out of his decomposing dead cat Sandy, which, by the way, I am still gagging over. But everything changes when Bear tries to escape the nightmare. He sneaks out to meet up with his friend Sarah in her car. Now, we already knew Sarah had a bit of a thing for Bear, right? They're having this warm, genuinely sweet, friendly heart-to-heart. Sarah is talking about her dreams of going to art school, and for a second, you think Bear might actually find a lifeline. Then, bam, Nikki literally shatters the car window. In a flash of absolute vicious violence, she grabs Sarah and repeatedly slams her head against the steering wheel until it's just an unrecognizable gory pulp. It is brutal. It is sudden, and it completely shifts the movie into top-gear horror. And the fact that Sarah was just about to realize her dream of art school. It's just the depressing, tragic cherry on top of a horrific cake. Here's the crazy part, though. Bear is completely trapped. Remember, he called the customer service number on the One Wish Willow box earlier, and that creepy voice on the line told him flat out, the wish only ends when either he or Nikki dies. Talk about a bad return policy, right? So, Bear tries to find a loophole. He thinks, okay, if I can't cancel my wish, maybe another person's wish can override it. He takes the second willow stick he bought and begs his buddy Ian to break it and undo the curse. But Ian thinks Bear has completely lost his mind. He doesn't believe in the magic at all. So as a joke, Ian snaps the stick and says, I wish for $1 billion. And guess what? Literal dollar bills start exploding out of the floorboards. It's raining cash, but instead of being happy, Bear is just filled with absolute anguish because he realizes his last loophole just went up in smoke. There's no magic undo button. He has no choice but to go back home to Nikki. When he gets back, things go from bad to worse. Nikki didn't even bother to hide Sarah's body. Instead, she's arranged it into this horrific, humiliating display in the house, and she's sitting there with a gun. She is completely in control, and she's making it very clear what happens if Bear ever tries to step out on her again. Then Ian walks through the door. He's all hyped up, waving his magic money around, celebrating his newfound wealth, completely oblivious to the danger. He steps inside, looks around, and before he can even process the horror movie scene he just walked into, Nikki shoots him right between the eyes. Just like that, Ian's billion-dollar wish ends in a pool of blood.
Does it matter? I thought we were having a nice day.
We are. The bathroom decision and the final twist. This brings us to the absolute climax of the film. Bear somehow manages to talk Nikki down and secure the gun. But let's be honest, it's hardly a victory. He looks at this girl, his childhood friend, and realizes she is just too dangerous for this world. More importantly, he realizes there is only one way out of this contract. He has to die. He locks himself in the bathroom. He's sitting there with the gun, shaking, trying to build up the courage to pull the trigger, but he just can't do it. The survival instinct is too strong, so instead, he looks in the medicine cabinet and finds a bottle of his grandmother's old oxycodone, the exact same pills that accidentally killed his cat Sandy earlier in the movie. It's poetic in a deeply dark way. He downs the entire bottle, but here is where director Curry Barker pulls the ultimate rug out from under us. Just as Bear is waiting for the pills to kick in, we hear a familiar, chilling sound from the living room. It's the sound of a One Wish Willow being broken. Suddenly, Bear's entire demeanor changes. His eyes go blank, his face relaxes, and this creepy, serene smile washes over him. What just happened? Well, Nikki found another stick, and out of pure desperation, she wished that Bear would love her as much as she loves him. Let me show you what I mean by how twisted this is. For a brief, shining moment, Bear walks out of that bathroom, completely possessed by the magic. The two of them embrace in this weird, shared, possessed madness. They're finally a happy couple, but it's completely hollow. It's a total illusion, and then the overdose takes its toll. Bear starts convulsing, foaming at the mouth, and collapses onto the floor. Nikki is performatively weeping over his body, holding him as he goes completely still. Bear is dead. And because Bear is dead, his original wish, the one that started this entire nightmare, is finally annulled. And this is the moment that will haunt my nightmares for weeks. The camera stays right on Nikki's face. The very second Bear's heart stops, the entity possessing Nikki vanishes. The magic lifts. The real Nikki suddenly wakes up inside her own body, completely conscious, and looks around. She sees Ian dead on the floor. She sees Sarah's mutilated body. She sees her best friend Bear dead in her arms, covered in foam and vomit. The full, crushing weight of everything her body was forced to do dawns on her all at once, and her horrific, agonizing cries echo out as the film cuts to black. Talk about a gut punch ending. Did Bear's wish ever actually come true? So, why does this actually matter? Let's dig a little deeper into the lore of the movie, because there's a really thorny question we need to answer. Did Bear's wish ever actually come true? On the surface, Obsession feels like a classic be careful what you wish for story. It's heavily inspired by The Monkey's Paw, that famous short story where you get exactly what you ask for, but in the most twisted, devastating way possible. Writer-director Curry Barker even admitted he was inspired by the famous Simpsons parody of it in Treehouse of Horror the 2. But if you look closely at the details, the One Wish Willow didn't actually change Nikki's feelings. It didn't make her fall in love with him. Instead, her body was completely hijacked and possessed by an entity whose sole, terrifying purpose was to mimic an impossible, obsessive intensity of love. The real Nikki was trapped inside her own flesh the entire time. Think about it. We get these tiny, heartbreaking glimpses of the real Nikki peeking through the cracks throughout the movie. On their very first night together, they're kissing in bed, and suddenly Nikki recoils in absolute horror, screaming that she sees something behind him. She wasn't seeing a ghost, she was seeing the entity taking over. At the party during that incredibly tense game of drunk Jenga, she breaks through for a split second, screams that it's not really her, and literally stabs her own face with a broken bottle just to try and stop it. And remember that night Bear tries to sneak out. Nikki whispers to him while her possessor is asleep, begging him to kill her. That is easily the most horrifying realization of the entire movie. Nikki's fate is so much worse than Bear's. Bear is traumatized by the cat sandwich and the murder of his friends, sure. But imagine being a passenger in your own body, forced to watch yourself murder your friends, defile a dead animal, and act like a maniac, completely powerless to stop it. So, did the wish come true? I'd argue a hard no. And honestly, the company's customer service rep basically confirms it. When Bear calls them, they don't say she loves you. They just put Nikki on the line, and she is just ceaselessly, hysterically screaming. The magic didn't grant love. It manufactured a prison. Decoding Freaky Nikki's bizarre behavior. Now let's talk about why Freaky Nikki acts the way she does, because some of her behavior is just downright bizarre. Why the constant screaming? Why the obsession with the dead cat? Well, a lot of what Freaky Nikki does is actually a brilliant, dark comedy satire of toxic relationship dynamics taken to a supernatural extreme. The movie is using horror to poke fun at extreme possessiveness and insecurity. When Bear asks for a boys' night, Nikki loses her mind. When Bear has to play Jenga and the rules say he has to kiss Sarah, Nikki forces Sarah out of the way. She throws tantrums, she threatens self-harm to keep him in bed, and she isolates him from his friends by telling that deeply disturbing, incestuous Hansel and Gretel story at the party. It's all a hyper-exaggerated version of the crazy, controlling partner trope, which gives the movie this really unique, uncomfortable social satire vibe. But then you have the purely malicious stuff, specifically the dead cat Sandy. Why on earth did she dug up his decomposing cat, make a shrine out of it, and then cook it into a sandwich? A distorted memory. There are two ways to look at this. First, it's a twisted corruption of a real memory. In the beginning of the film, Bear mentions how much he appreciated Nikki comforting him when his grandmother died. The real Nikki was full of empathy. Freaky Nikki, however, is incapable of actual care. She takes his grief over his cat and salts the wound. Second, it's about absolute monopoly over his heart. Bear loved that cat, and he felt incredibly guilty over its death. Freaky Nikki cannot handle Bear loving anything else, even a pet that is already dead. By turning the cat into a horrific shrine, and later doing the exact same thing to Sarah's body, she is punishing Bear for having emotional attachments outside of her. It's psychological warfare designed to keep him terrified, compliant, and completely trapped in the house. Our nerdy thoughts. Ultimately, Obsession is a brilliant, mean-spirited little horror movie that exposes the dark side of unrequited love and entitlement. Bear thought he was the good guy. He practiced his sweet confession in the mirror. He thought he deserved her. And he used a magical shortcut to force a relationship. But his romantic self-image was completely shattered by the reality of what absolute control actually looks like. When the film ends on Nikki's waking scream, director Curry Barker forces us to carry the true weight of the tragedy out of the theater. Bear died under the spell of a delusion, but Nikki has to live with the reality of the carnage left behind. So, what did you guys think of Obsession? Did that ending shock you as much as it shocked me? Do you think Ian's billion-dollar wish had a hidden catch before he got shot? Drop your theories in the comments below. I want to read all of them. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with a friend who is still confused by the ending, and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite horror movies. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and maybe think twice before buying anything from a mystic shop. See ya next time.
Like to cancel your wish?
No.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.